All right, welcome to the second coding tutorial. So the first one, I showed you kind of sort of my my process for writing hello using the turtle. In this one, we're basically going to do the same thing, but instead of writing your thing like line by line and having everything be written out explicitly like this, what we're going to do instead is we're going to create functions to write all of the letters. So instead of having to write all of this each time and then having to write L and then L and so on and so forth, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of this and put it into a function that writes the letter H, and then we're going to call that or create that function over here and then call it whenever we want to inside of our function, right? Or inside of our main. Okay, so essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something pretty similar to what I did before, where I'm basically going to have my PowerShell over here, and we're going to try to run things that way. Okay, so yeah, okay, let's do get import our turtle. We're going to do Tallulah once again is going to be equal to the turtle function within the turtle module. And we have our turtle over here, which is good. Then we are going to change her shape to a turtle because that is much cuter. Because my brain is Swiss cheese and I can't remember anything ever. Let's pen size and pen color is what we did. Okay, so let's do pen size equals 10 once again, and then let's do pen color is going to be equal to blue. Okay, if you remember last time, we sort of had this issue where our Tallulah here kind of went off screen. So before we start anything, I'm just going to back her up a little bit so that we give ourselves a little bit of space to work. So let's do Tallulah. Let's raise her pen, and then let's back her up. Say, nope. Say, call it 300. And then boom, that's a better starting place, and that way we won't have her running off screen. Okay, so like I said, in the previous video, we basically created this file from the template where we're basically, and here we have importing turtle over here in the import section, and then within our main, we have initializing Tallulah, changing her properties, and here we actually have her moving to the left like we just did, which actually reminds me, let's do let's drop her pen just so we're not forgetting to do that. And so, right, so now we want to draw the H, but instead of doing this way, what we want to do is create a function where Tallulah is doing all of these things, right? So the way that you do that, so you want to do a couple of things. You want to create a function, decide on what arguments you want to pass it, and then put stuff inside that function. So I know that all that might not make sense right now, and that is fine. But that's what we're going to do now, right? So like I said, main is also a function. So essentially the syntax for creating a function is exactly that. We're going to define a function. We're going to call it write H. And then we're going to do that. So this is basically us creating a function. Okay, like I said, everything within that function needs to be indented. And so what we're going to put is going to basically just going to copy paste all of the stuff that we have over here. Don't double indent, just single indent. And put all of this stuff into write H, right? So right now we have a function called write H, and then within that we have all these things happening. right? Now you'll notice that Tallulah here is underlined because VS Code is noticing that there's an error. And essentially the error is that Tallulah is not defined, right? So at this point in the code, Tallulah is not defined. And more importantly, within the function here, Tallulah is also not defined. And so what that means is that, so essentially a function you're going to, a function is going to do stuff to stuff, right? Here we know that we want the function right h to do things to a turtle, right? In our case, we created a turtle called Tallulah, but that won't always be the case. If you want to call your turtle Alex or Jeremy or whatever, that's fine, right? And so what we're going to do is instead of having Tallulah being the name of our turtle, we're just going to we are going to let's see here. We're going to replace this with a generic turtle name, which we're going to call a turtle, right? So instead of being called Tallulah within the function, it's going to be called a turtle, which is just a generic name for a turtle. Okay, now you'll see it's still undefined, which is a problem. And the reason for that is because within this function, we're calling this object and it hasn't been defined anywhere in the function, right? So what we could do is actually do, if we did this, and we created a turtle called a turtle, see how that goes away? And that's fine. If we wanted to create a new turtle each time we want to write a letter, right? Each time we want to write an H, we could create a turtle and then write, but that would be a huge hassle because it would never be in the right position and it just wouldn't work, right? So that's not what we're going to do. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to pass an object to our function. And the way that we do that is we're basically going to say, write H is going to have one argument. That one argument is going to be a turtle, and whatever I put here in a turtle is going to be understood to be the same thing as this a turtle over here. Does that kind of make sense? So what that means is, so right now, and this is not causing an error because the a turtle has been defined at least within the function write H. A turtle doesn't conceptually exist. It does, but it doesn't. It does in the computer's memory, but conceptually it doesn't really exist in the rest of our code because it's only defined here. In reality, it does actually create a variable called a turtle, but don't worry about that, at least for now. That's fine. Okay, so now we have a function called writeH that does all of these things, right? So that's pretty awesome. So what that means is that instead of this, now we can get rid of all of this code and just do write H. And then that'll call this function over here that we created. And it'll do something to it, right? Now, if I just did it like this, I would probably get an error because it would say that like it's asking for a parameter here that I haven't given it. It's asking for an argument that I haven't given it. See how when you say shape turtle, if you say, Tallulah shape and you say nothing, it'll be like, well, what kind of shape do you want me to put it as, right? In your function, you've already said that there's going to be an argument here, and here you're not giving it, so that'll create an error. Oh, right. I forgot my colon. Okay. Right. So right, when you're creating a function, define the name of your function within the parentheses, the arguments of that function, and then a colon to kind of say what's after this colon is going to be the stuff that's in my function. Then you say all the stuff that's in your function. You indent that to further indicate that it's within your function, and then when you're done, you get out of indent, and that's the end of the stuff that's in your function. Right. Okay. So now, like I said, we have this parameter, this argument that we're saying should exist, and here it doesn't exist, so that would be a problem. And you'll notice this isn't a syntax error, this is actually a logic error. If I ran this right now, it wouldn't necessarily be an error with the code, but it would run into an issue here, like, oh, actually, there's no argument here. So like actually, maybe it is a syntax error. But either way, the point is here, the text editor isn't picking up on an error because it's not realizing that I forgot to write an argument here, right? So instead here, what we're going to do is we're going to take our Tallulah and put her over here. And so what that means now is when the computer is going through this code and it gets to this line, it's going to say write H. Okay, write H is a function, and it's going to go over here, and this is what it's going to do, right? And it's going to say write H is a function, and the one parameter I'm going to pass is going to be Tallulah. So it's going to come here, write H is a function. It's going to basically replace, not really replace, but a turtle is now going to be equal to Tallulah, and it's going to go through all these things with, instead of a turtle, it's going to be, at least internally, be Tallulah forward, blah, 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 doing all these things, right? So essentially, this is going to run all of that and replacing a turtle with Tallulah because we told it a turtle is going to be Tallulah. Does that make sense? Okay. So assuming that all that actually worked, let's actually try and run it and see whether or not that is true or not. So I'm going to run the script. I just saved it, and I'm going to run it. And all right, good. So it actually wrote the H, and then the rest of the code is unchanged. So basically everything is the way that it was before, which is fine. So at least that worked. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to, instead of having all of hello being written, I'm going to just comment all this out just so I have my H, and so we kind of build on that from there, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to block comment all of this, and you can do that by, at least on a PC, you can do Control K and C all together, and it basically will comment all of that together. To undo that, you can do Control K and U. That should work at least. Control K U. There we go, and it undoes what I just did there. All right. Okay. So the reason we're going to do that is because we basically just want to do one thing at a time and not get too confused as we go. So now if I run this, it'll just do my H and then be done. And now you see at the end of my H function, I included, see, it does pen up, move forward, pen down, and it ends over here, right? And as you may or may not realize, that's kind of awkward because if we end this at the end of each function in different locations, it's going to be real hard to know, if at the end of my H, the turtle's over here, if the end of the E, it would be over here or something, or over here. If it changes all the time, it's not going to be possible to just kind of use these functions like in no particular order, right? It would only work if you wrote hello with and even your two L's would have to be different because we ended on two different places at the end of the L, right? So that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just decide at the end of each letter, I'm going to end at the end of my function for each letter, I'm going to, instead of ending randomly, I'm going to always end up in the upper left corner of the next letter, right? So that way I'll be prepared the next time when I get to my next letter, I'll know exactly this is where I am for my letter, and this is how I can build that letter, right? And so if we just do that consistently, it'll make everything much easier and just possible for us. So right now in my code, I have pen up forward 100, right? Which is where it's ending over here. What we want instead is pen up forward 50, turn left, forward 100, turn right. Yeah, so upper left corner and always pointing in the same direction, right? So let's do that now. So instead, let's do pen up 50. So right, I said pen up 50. So pen up forward 50, left 90, again, I'm copy pasting. You guys should not do that. I'm just doing that for your sake of not watching me type everything super long every single time. All right, so now if I did this correctly, let's close this and I run my script again, it should hopefully end. Boom, perfect. Right, so now we're ready to do RE, right? And actually, interestingly, so if I wanted to, I could just do a bunch of H's one after the other, and they should all basically be all perfectly distanced, and everything should work perfectly fine if I did this right. So let's see. Yeah, see, because I'm starting in the same location each time, it's writing all the letters consistently and doing everything the way that it should be, right? So that is good. Proof of concept. Our code actually seems to be doing what we hope it's doing. All right, so now let's get rid of that and move on to our E, right? So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come up here. We're going to define a function. Nope. We're going to, all right, I'll actually type it out and stop being lazy. We're going to define, right, E. We're going to call it a turtle again. So you can keep reusing the same variable each time. That is not a problem. And we are basically going to actually now because of this, our whole code for writing E is no longer good. So we will basically have to start from scratch, right? So for that, let's just go to over here and just write just an E, assuming that we're starting in the upper left corner and our turtle is facing to the right, right? So first thing we want to do is have her go all right, forward by 50. Oop. All right, turtle goes forward by 50. And so that'll be like the upper line of the E. Then we'll have her go backwards 50. We'll have her turn right 90. We'll have her go forward 100. We'll have her go left 90, and we'll have her go forward 50. Then we'll do back 50 again. Left 90, forward 50, right 90, forward 50. And that's our E, right? So all of this code that we have over here, that's most of our E that we're going to be using, right? So now I can replace all of that, and I can do this. Again, I'm demonstrating exactly how you should not be doing this by being just copy pasting everything. So yeah, again, don't be like me. Yeah, if you double click on a thing in the editor, it actually selects, like if I double click on Tallulah, it selects all of Tallulah. So that's if you want to copy paste and replace some stuff. All right, so now this is writing the E, but it's actually not positioning us for the next letter, right? So by the end of this, we're here again. And so we want to raise the pen, go forward, up, and then turn, right? So in order to do that, let's do turtle pen up. Let's do a turtle forward 50. So pen up, forward 50. And so we want to have her turn left, forward 50, turn right, right? left 90, forward 50, turn right, and then pin down, right? So now if I did this right, our turtle should right a knee, lift the pen, position itself, and then lower the pen again, right? So once again, what we can do is if we come down here and now we replace all of this by right E. And again, we want to pass the argument to Lula. Oh yeah, in the editor also, if you start writing something, it'll try to autofill. And then if it's the right one, you can use here the arrows to go up and down and choose which one. And if you just press tab, it'll autofill the thing that you're trying to fill. And okay, so let's see if this actually worked. Boom, right? So once again, we wrote, all right. We wrote HE and then a position in the right location, right? So let's do the exact same thing again. For the L, I'm going to define right L like this. I'm going to call a turtle. And then let's not forget my colon. A turtle. So how do we do an L? So that should be really, really straightforward. We're basically just going to do line. We're going to turn her. All right, let's just run this again. Okay, so we're here. So essentially we want to have her turn right, down 100, left, forward 50, right? So I said right, hundred, left, okay. And so I think at the very least that should give us our L. Now it won't be positioned correctly, and I am aware of this, but that is perfectly fine for right now. I just want to make sure that my function is actually doing what I think it is, and it's actually making an L. And this is what I was saying, I think in the last video, step by step, do little small chunks at a time and double check that your code is doing what you think it is. And if it is, then you move on to the next thing. It's way easier than trying to troubleshoot like 15 different errors at the same time. Right, perfect. So that actually worked. And so what I want now is to have her again relocate to the upper left corner. So she'll be going forward 50, turn left, forward 100, turn right, right? So let's do that. Let's do a turtle. Pen up. She's going to go forward 50. She's going to go turn left, not let, but left 90. She's going to go forward 100, and she's going to go right 90. So once again, we're going to save, and we're going to see if our code is doing what we think it is. Perfect. And now the beauty of this is that what we can do is just write another L, right? We don't have to write a whole bunch of other code again. We can basically just do this, save, and run again. You see what I did there? Someone forgot to put the pen down. Yeah, and so that is exactly why you do small things at a time, and why you double check as you go. So now, hopefully, it should do what we think it should do. There we go. And we're not just going to leave it at hell. We're going to write an O. And we're basically, again, same thing as before. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say the exact same thing over and over again, but we are almost done. Create write O, use a turtle, and then we're going to basically do a turtle. So at this point, she's over here. So we're basically just going to do boom, 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 and boom. And so she's going to go forward 50. She is going to turn right 90. She's going to go forward 100. All right, I'm not going to do that. Again, my laziness is strong. Turn 90. Oops. Forward 50. 90. And then, all right, so if this works the way that I think it does, that should write an O, and it should not be at the right position at the very end of it, right? So let's try that, saved, and then we'll run it again. Perfect. So now all we really need to do is turn her to the right, pen up, and then move 100 forward. So let's do that. Let's do a turtle, pen up, and then we said turn her right 90 degrees, and then forward 100. And then we're going to not forget to drop the pen. All right, and so I think if we save that there, that should all work out. And now to sort of proof of concept it all, I'm going to write hello, and I am going to add a couple of letters just to make sure that all of these things can be used interchangeably, right? And so the idea being, so if for example, I'd forgotten to do that pin up on the O, if I'd forgotten, whatever, it would come out when I did this. If I hadn't positioned properly at the end of my O, if I'd forgotten the pen up, all that stuff, or sorry, the pen down, then it would be shown when I run this code, which is not what we actually want, but it's just sort of a kind of a gut check to make sure that everything is working the way that we think it should be working. Yeah, and now it's going to go off screen, which is fine. But yeah, so that looks good to me. It seems like everything is working the way that it should. And that, in a nutshell, is how you would use functions to write hello. And so obviously the advantage here is it makes the main a lot cleaner and a lot nicer to look at. And especially if you're going to be writing a whole bunch of things, if you're going to be writing, in this case, we're using L twice, so you only have to have one function called write L, and you can use it as many times as you want. But ultimately, if you're going to write like this really long text or something, you could create a function for each letter of the alphabet and then just kind of use that to write this really long text, right? Yeah, without having to rewrite, a billion lines of code each time. You could just keep reusing the same functions. And ultimately, that's the beauty of functions, is that if you build your functions well, they can be reusable in a way that really shortens the rest of your work a lot, by a lot. Yeah, so hopefully that is helpful for you guys. And I'm going to leave it at that. And again, if you have any questions or whatever, just throw that up on Slack or on the class listserv. Yeah, that's all. Have a good week. Good luck with programming this yourself. That is all.